Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark and in this lesson we're going to look at using a looper pedal, particularly in the context of blues and particularly to improve our practice. Now I'm going to be looking at three different looper pedals, or I'm going to be using three different looper pedals during this video. I've got a TC Electronic Ditto, which seems to be the kind of the market leader. It seems to see more of those being sold than anything else. We've got a Boss loop station. This is the RC3. And I've got a Donner Beltway, which is actually a really cheap looper, the sort that you could pick up on Amazon and things, mail order, and yeah, we're going to see how that compares. It's not actually a shootout between the three. What I'm going to do is each one's got different features, so at different points I'm going to kind of show you what features they've got. But really the video is about how you use a looper pedal. So it doesn't matter whether you got one of these or you got a slightly different looper pedal, doesn't matter, the principles are all the same. But it should be known that different looper pedals have different functions. We'll use different ones at different times. The TC Electronic and the Boss pedal, I paid for myself, bought them out my own hard-earned cash. The Donner pedal actually was sent to me by the company and asked if I would include it in one of the videos, which worked out well because I was planning on doing a looper video anyway, and it's nice to have a cheap alternative on there as well. So three pedals, but as I say, not a shootout. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at common difficulties people have with looper pedals. I've had a few comments on Patreon and other things, people saying I bought a looper pedal but I can't quite use it, it's not working for me, and kind of gave up on it. So we'll be looking at kind of common issues and how you might resolve them. Look at how you can use this to improve your practice for scales, for playing licks, for jamming with, and also how you'd use it in a 12-bar blues. And then we'll look at some of the different features of the different pedals as well. So we're going to start by looking at the most common issue, which is knowing when to start and when to end the loop and getting those tight so that when it comes back round it loops correctly. So we're going to start with a little 1-bar phrase, 1 bar, 4 beats, and we're going to do 2 beats of E and then 2 beats of A. Okay, we want to loop that round and round, nice and simple. Now, when I first got a looper pedal, I thought, well, I got 4 beats, I want to come in on 1 and I want to go out on 4. Sounds easy, so I'll count 4 while I do this, and I'll come in on the 1, and then when I've played the 4, that's when we're going to stop. Okay, so I'll show you why that's wrong and how that sounds now. So we actually want it to sound like this. And just going like that forever. So your first common mistake is you're going to come in on beat 1, you're going to go out on beat 4. So that's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you see what happens there. Actually, it plays beat 1, 2, 3, and then because I stopped it on beat 4, it assumes that's the start of the bar again. So the point being that you can't do it like that. What you need to do is you need to get to the end of beat 4, come back onto beat 1 again, and go out on beat 1. So that's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And our loop works, and we can jam over it. Okay, so that's the principle. You come in on beat 1 and you go out again on the next beat 1. It's actually easier if you were doing a riff like that. I'd do 2 bars of it, and rather than just 1 bar of it. So I'd actually play the riff twice on the guitar in the loop. So you've got a slightly longer loop. I find the loops of 1 bar are a little bit too short. It feels a bit too much like tap dancing. Okay, another common problem is actually the opposite. Instead of ending the loop too early, you end the loop too late. So you kind of go, right, I'm going to play the riff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now stomp the pedal. And if you do that, it sounds like this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, you get that gap. And kill that. So you want to make sure you're not chopping off the loop too early, and you're not leaving a gap at the end as well. What you want is it to just be to just flow through. Tip I do for that, there's two kind of tips I've got really. The first one is that when you get to the end of the loop and you want the looper pedal then to kick in and take over from you, you carry on playing. So you carry on playing while you're doing the old foot tapping to end the loop there. So you kind of play through that, you get a smoother transition and it feels more natural. Okay, that's the first tip. The second one is sometimes you might struggle with counting that, making sure it's on, that it's exactly on. The best thing to do then is to use something like a metronome. So I'm going to set up a metronome now on my phone, and this is just a free download app that you can get like from, you know, there's a million of those things on the App Store and those things. So I've set up the metronome now, and I'm going to play with the metronome. So I'll start the metronome, and then to get a feel for the timing, and then I will be kicking the pedal off and on in time with the metronome. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there you heard, use a metronome, that helps you keep in time. Usually 1 bar or 2 bar, well, as I say before, 2 bars, if you're just doing a loop of that, probably you'll be able to keep it in time. You don't need a metronome, but to start off with, just to help you make sure that you get that in and out actually on the beat, you might want to use a metronome. So what I'm doing there, got the metronome, I'm listening to that, I'm starting the riff, and then once the looper kicks in, I'm stopping it on the external metronome. Okay, so that was the kind of the first tip, really. Okay, and next we'll talk about practicing scales. So let's look at practicing your scales now. So I did a series of lessons last year, and one of the things I pointed out was that you can use the E minor pentatonic scale to play over an E minor chord and it will sound like E minor, but you can use the same scale shape to play over a G major chord and it will sound like G major pentatonic. Now I'm not going to go into the theory in this lesson, you can check out those, that was in the Pentatonic Like a Pro series. But one of the comments we got about that video was the fact that without backing music, you couldn't really hear the difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to illustrate that now, but I'm going to use a pedal in order to be the backing music. So I've now swapped over to the TCL Electronic Ditto, so you can see using that pedal instead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play just a straight E minor chord vamp, and then I'll play the E minor pentatonic scale over the top. Okay, so here we go. Let's think for it. Okay, so that's how E minor pentatonic sounds over an E minor chord. Let's do the same thing, but the difference now is I'm going to play a G major chord into the looper. Okay, so the difference there you should have heard is I'm playing the same scale over both chords, but when it's over E minor, it sounds kind of miserable and dark and minory. And when it's over a G major chord, it sounds happy and bright and majory. So it's having a looper pedal gives you that context so you can practice scales in different positions and things and hear how they sound relating to the underlying chord. Okay, so that's one thing that I use looper pedals for quite a lot. Helps you understand and hear a scale. So you can set a loop playing, maybe just like in a G, just a straight kind of G chord, and you could play G major pentatonic, E minor pentatonic, B minor pentatonic. You could play G mixolydian, you could play G Ionian, if you know your modes and things. So if you do that, it will help you hear the differences in the scales and the particular flavors that each scale has got. So it's a really great tool for that, because if you were just practicing scales up and down on the fretboard, you don't really get that context. You need the underlying chord to provide the harmony so your ear can hear it. So that's a really good tool for a really good use of looper pedals. Help you practice your scale so you can hear the tones and hear the sounds and the different flavors in there. Okay, so next let's have a look at practice some licks over a one chord vamp. So I'm gonna just set up a little riff now, jam over the top. We'll stay in the key of E. I'll use a metronome to count me in, and we'll see how we go. Okay, and final thing now to think about is, as blues players, we love our 12-bar blues. But 12-bar blues, playing a whole 12 bars, can be quite difficult, and you can really kind of mess up your loop very easy if you're trying to make a loop that's 12 bars long. I'll show you an example. Where you're going to have issues is that you're going to speed up and slow down during the making of the loop. Okay, and I'll show you kind of an extreme example of that. So for this one, I'm going to use my Boss pedal. Okay, so you might find yourself doing something like this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm sure you must have kind of heard the issue there. I'm speeding up and slowing down as I'm playing through that 12 bar, and it means that by the time I get to the end of the loop, I'm going a lot faster than when I started, so that when we get to the end of the 12 bars, suddenly we go back to the first bar and it slows right down again, and you get quite a jerky loop. Okay, I was deliberately kind of emphasizing that and kind of overplaying it, but it's something that's pretty common to us all. So a way of getting around that is, like exercise 1, use a metronome, or you can use an external drum machine if you want to play to an actual beat rather than just a click. Playing to a click can be a bit boring. This particular pedal has a drum machine built into it. which is actually really useful. So I'll set that up and I'll show you that working. So what I'll do now is I'll start the rhythm going. Okay, so that's how that works. So you can use a drum machine or metronome or something to keep you in time, so the loop ends up seamless. As I say, this particular Boss pedal, it's got that built into it, which is kind of a nice feature. The drum machine, you probably agree, doesn't sound brilliant. It doesn't sound like an authentic drummer, but it's only a practice tool. We're only using this to practice. I know people do use looper pedals to actually perform. I've never done that. To me, it's just a fantastic practice tool. It means you can play at home, practice new ideas and get them down, and you know, without the need for other musicians to be around. So a quick little talk now about where you put the looper in your chain. Do you put it as your first pedal, your last pedal? Do you put it in the effects loop? What's the pros and cons? What's the difference? Does it even matter? Answer is yes, it does matter. If you have the pedal as the very first thing in your loop, then everything that comes after it is going to affect the loop as well as affecting what you're playing. So here's an example. I want a clean rhythm tone and then I want a dirty lead tone afterwards. So I'm going to start by recording the loop with the clean, then I'm going to kick onto the dirty channel of the amp and I'll play lead over the top. I'm going to use the ditto for this because the ditto is at the front of the chain. So this will illustrate the problem, okay? So I'm going to set up just like a little rhythm and then I'm going to play lead on top. And I want the rhythm clean and I want the lead dirty. So if you set it up like this, pedal first thing in the chain, this is what's going to happen, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there you saw me flipping between the clean and the dirty channel on the amp, and what was happening is when I go to the dirty channel, then the loop goes dirty as well. So the way I'm going to get around that is I'm going to use the Boss pedal instead. The Boss, it's not a difference in the pedal, it's just that the Boss pedal is through the effects loop of the amp, which means it's the very last thing in the signal chain. In fact, to illustrate this, I'm going to take the delay off. So the amp and the delay are both in front of the Boss pedal. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to record the rhythm and then I'm going to kick on the delay pedal and change the channel on the amp. What you should hear is that the rhythm stays without any delay and it stays without any dirt. But then when I click the dirty channel on, the rhythm stays clean, but the lead over the top's dirty. I hope that explains it. Okay, here we go. It's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I hope that illustrated it. I could change sound on my guitar, but it doesn't change the sound on the loop. Now, if you've got an amp that hasn't got an effects loop, what you do is you put any dirt pedals or anything in front of the pedal and put the pedal as the last thing in the chain. Now, if you're using a switching amp where you're going from dirty channel to clean channel, you are going to have to put that looper pedal in the loop. Otherwise, the thing to do would be to use a distortion pedal or an overdrive pedal or something in between the guitar and the loop pedal. It's the only kind of way you do it. As I say, this amp, it's got an effects loop, so I'm running the loop station in the effects loop as well. So basically, the point is just always have the looper pedal as the very last thing in the chain. Okay, so I hope that was useful. Quick thing about the 3 pedals is the loop station's got loads of features on it. You can save loops, you can use the drum machine, as I said, you can export those loops to your PC and all that kind of stuff and do that kind of good stuff. Loads and loads and loads of features in there. The Ditto is actually the simplest pedal to use. It basically does one thing off and on, and that's an overdub. We didn't really talk about overdubs in this lesson. It's not something I use a lot, but you can do. So you can record a rhythm and then record a second part on top and have that as the whole loop. I don't tend to use that. The Ditto has that feature, but that's pretty much all it does. The Beltway, interesting pedal. It's got a couple of additional features. It can do a reverse, so you can record a loop and then have the loop play backwards. In fact, I'll show you that now. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that was the Beltway. It's got the half speed feature as well, so everything basically drops down an octave and goes half the speed. You've also got the that reverse feature as well. Makes it for some interesting sounds. Certainly, I'm sure there's creative players out there that could use that and come up with some interesting loops. As a blues player, it's not really a thing for me, but interesting. The fact is, it comes in about half the price of the looper, of the Ditto looper. Does what the Ditto looper does, plus a few extra things as well. The Beltway, you can also save your loops to the computer. It can only have one loop in it at a time, whereas the loop station, I don't know, 99 I think it is. But they do different things. The basic function that I use it for is just starting and stopping loops. And for that, they all do that. The Boss is nice because it has that built-in drum machine, which means you don't need the to use a metronome on your phone. But other than that, there's not a lot to choose between them. Personally, I like the design of the Beltway and the Ditto looper, being small, being neat, and the push button I find easier to use than the big clumpy thing on the front of the Boss. But you know, different people have different tastes. Hope you found that useful. Bit of a different lesson this time. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again.